Thank you all for joining us this morning to launch the Landmine Monitor 2016. I'm Erin Hunt. I'm the Program Coordinator at Mines Action Canada and a Senior Researcher on Casualties and Victim Assistance for the Landmine Monitor. The Landmine Monitor is a research initiative of the 1997 Nobel Peace Prize laureate, the International Campaign to ban landmines. It is the de facto monitoring regime of the Ottawa Treaty banning landmines. Mines Action Canada has been involved in all 18 annual landmine monitors. The Landmine Monitor 2016 provides a global overview of efforts to eliminate suffering caused by landmines in 2015 and into October 2016 where possible. The report is divided into 4 chapters looking at ban policy, casualties and victim assistance, contamination and clearance, and support for mine action, while updated profiles for individual countries are available online. We'll be highlighting the major findings of the report this morning. Overall, Landmine Monitor 2016 continues to detail progress towards a mine-free world, but it also reports a decade-high number of casualties at a time when support for mine action fell to its lowest level in 10 years. Rejection of anti-personnel mines remains the global norm, even as non-state armed groups and a small number of states not party to the Ottawa Treaty continue to use the weapons. Many countries continue to clear mine contamination, however, global clearance declined in 2015. To start off, Mines Action Canada Executive Director Paul Hannon will discuss the ban policy.
Thank you. Good morning. There were no new ratifications or accessions in the reporting period, but in March 2016, it was announced that Sri Lanka's Cabinet of Ministers had approved accession to the Mine Ban Treaty, also known as the Ottawa Treaty, but the instrument of accession has not yet been deposited. In terms of stockpiles, states parties have collectively destroyed more than 51 million stockpiled anti-personnel mines. More than 2.1 million were destroyed in 2015. 4 states parties possess more than 7 million anti-personnel mines remaining to be destroyed. And of the 35 countries not yet having joined the Ottawa Treaty, 31 of those are estimated to have a stockpile of about 50 million mines. The monitor identifies 11 states as producers of anti-personnel mines, unchanged from the previous report. Most of these countries are not believed to be actively producing mines, but reserve the right to do so. Those most likely to be actively producing are India, Myanmar, Pakistan, and South Korea. And a de facto ban on state-to-state transfer of anti-personnel mines has been in effect since the mid-1990s. Go ahead.
Sorry. Thanks, Paul. The use of anti-personnel mines by states remains a relatively rare phenomenon. There was no confirmed new use of mines by states parties from October 2015 until October 2016. The government forces of Myanmar, North Korea, and Syria, all states not party to the Ottawa Treaty, used anti-personnel mines in the past year, while non-state armed groups used anti-personnel mines in 10 different countries. Non-state armed groups mostly use improvised mines, also known as victim-activated improvised explosive devices, or IEDs, and booby traps, rather than factory-made landmines. Such devices are banned by the Ottawa Treaty as they explode due to the presence, proximity, or contact of an actual person. While the use of landmines by states remains rare, the monitor recorded a rise in the number of people killed or injured by mines, improvised mines, cluster munition remnants, and other improvised explosive remnants of war. In 2015, the monitor recorded 6,461 casualties, which is a 75% increase over the casualties recorded in 2014. This increase was due to more casualties recorded in armed conflicts in Libya, Syria, Yemen, and Ukraine. We also had access to data that was not available in the past. However, recorded casualties decreased in more states and areas than increased. The casualty total in 2015 was the highest recorded casualties since 2006. 2015 also had the highest number of casualties by improvised mines ever. In 2015, 78% of casualties were civilians, and 38% of all civilian casualties were children. Since it began in 1999, the Monitor has recorded over 100,000 mine and ERW casualties, and including 73,000 new survivors. When it comes to support for survivors and assistance to victims, the Monitor reported that most states parties with significant number of victims lack the resources to fulfill their commitments under the Ottawa Treaty and subsequent action plans. In most states parties, victim assistance efforts have been integrated into other disability and development efforts, but we still need to see more survivor participation in the services that affect their lives, as well as more transparency about what progress has been made towards victim assistance goals and more funding. One final note before I turn it back over to Paul to talk about mine clearance and support or funding for mine action. Last week, on a Skype call about these findings, our Yemeni colleague summed up the situation in her country by asking us all to hope for peace but look for funding. I feel that this applies to many of the countries reported on this year in the Monitor.
In terms of contamination, the Monitor found that 64 states and areas are contaminated by anti-personnel mines as of October 2016. This includes 36 states parties to the Ottawa Treaty, 24 states not party, and 4 other areas. This is an increase from 61 states and areas in 2015. The increase is due to new use of anti-personnel mines, including improvised mines in Nigeria, and to the acquisition of new data on pre-existing contamination in Palau and Mozambique. In terms of clearance, about 171 square kilometers of land was reported to be cleared in 2015, which is a decrease from an estimated 201 square kilometers in 2014. In 2015, nearly 158,000 anti-personnel mines and some 14,000 anti-vehicle mines were destroyed in the context of mine clearance. As in 2014, the largest clearance of mined areas in 2015 was achieved in Afghanistan, Cambodia, and Croatia, which together account for more than 70% of recorded clearance. Over the past 5 years, approximately 960 square kilometers of mined areas have been cleared, some 1.3 anti-personnel mines and more than 60,000 anti-vehicle mines have been destroyed in the context of clearance. To date, 26 states parties and 1 state not party have completed their clearance of all mined areas in their territory since the treaty began in 1999, or entered into force in 1999. And 1 state, Ukraine, is in violation of its Article 5 obligations due to missing a clearance deadline of June 1st, 2016 without being granted an extension. In terms of financial support for mine action, donors in affected states contributed approximately US $471 million in international and national support for mine action in 2015. This was a decrease of 23% from 2014, and it's the 3rd year in a row of declining support and the lowest total since 2005. 35 donors contributed $340 million in international support for mine action to 41 states. This also represents a decrease of almost $77 million from 2014, and it's the first time since 2005 that international support fell below $400 million. The top 5 mine action donors were the United States, Japan, the European Union, Norway, and Netherlands, and they contributed 71% of all international funding. The top 5 recipient states were Afghanistan, Iraq, Laos, PDR, Cambodia, and Syria, which received 48% of all international support in 2015. And for the 13th consecutive year, Afghanistan received more funding than any other country. The Monitor also identified 14 affected states, which provided $131 million in contributions to their own national mine action programs. For Canada in 2015, it contributed $11.4 million in funds, which means it re-entered the top 10 of donor countries. It contributed to mine action programs in 8 countries, and from the largest to the smallest in terms of problems, this would be Afghanistan, Ukraine, Iraq, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Colombia, and Laos PDR. 40% of Canadian funding went to Afghanistan. Canada was one of only 4 donor countries to increase contributions in 2015. Canada's increase was 35% over the previous year, and the 11.4 million total was above the Canadian average of 10 million over the previous 5 years, but well below the 36 million per year average that occurred in the 5-year period from 2006 to 2010. Before turning to questions, I'd just like to say that the monitor report continues to show steady progress, but we are seeing some things happening in this reporting period, such as a sharp increase in new casualties, decrease in area cleared, and decrease in funding that we view as a worrisome activities, and we hope this is not a start of a trend. And we'd like to see, with Canada returning to a top 10 donor, that it becomes a top 5 donor, and again becomes a political and diplomatic leader on this issue, so that we can finish the job by 2025, which is the goal set by states parties to the Ottawa Treaty themselves. And we'll open it up for questions now. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.